Hello grade 8, sorry for the quality of this video recording. I don't have my normal mic with me, but I'm just wanting to take you through exactly what you have to do in science today so there's no confusion. So on the top of our STEM Google Classroom, you have the assignment that was released to you. Now, first thing you're going to be doing is working on task 1 in your Google Doc. So you'll need to open your task 1. You have some help sheets for that. Okay, and I've added one in, so I want you to listen to this. So once you've opened that task 1, you can also open this task 1 student links. So here's task 1, and here's task 1 student links opening up. Now, task 1 student links looks exactly like task 1, except I've put links to my YouTube videos in there. Your first job, and you might need to do this to remind yourself, was to double click and open up this drawing so you can play the YouTube video that's embedded in it. But you have to double click and open up the drawing to do that. And that tells you the story of this new experiment. Now, you've practiced writing up reports with other experiments. You were reminded about that last week. This, Rocks Under Pressure, is the experiment that you are now writing up about. Now, if we scroll down, last lesson you were asked to copy and paste in the feedback you got from previous write-ups, and if you were away, you were asked to copy and paste in feedback from an example experiment I'd given you over here, which was this igneous rock report. If you were away, there's feedback in there you could use to help you. However, for today, we are not doing any more on this. We are working on our actual assessment piece. So after watching this video, Rocks Under Pressure again, you need to write up about that experiment. You're only going to be writing a hypothesis, a discussion, and an evaluation. These are the skills you've already practiced and been given feedback on in Term 1 and Term 2. So first of all, your hypothesis. You can't do a hypothesis unless you know what your variables are, okay? So in order to know that, I've added in these little boxes here to help remember. What did we change in this new experiment? What did I actually change? What did I use to measure how strong and hard they were? So once you've remembered what those variables are, you can write your hypothesis. Now, if you're a little bit confused or you're not sure what to do, or you just want a reminder of what to do with a hypothesis, here is the link to the YouTube video on how to do that. Once you watch that, you can actually fill this in as best you can. The one thing I do want you to talk about when it comes to explaining why our rocks might be harder or softer is remember that the one thing that helps rocks gain strength and hardness is if they're given the opportunity for their crystals to grow in and interlock. You have to be able to talk about that if you want to get higher marks. And we've already talked about that in class. Now, if you want to improve on that, we can talk about that a bit more next week though. Down here, we have the lovely little graph that shows you the results of that experiment for those different rocks. You need to take time to actually study this and try and understand it. I'm not going to just explain it to you. Remember, this is not something you're going to do in a minute or two. You actually have to take the time to study this data because you have already practiced doing this before. This is how far they spread, the dispersal range, and this is the hardness. Take time to study it and understand it. And then you need to fill in and write a discussion on what that data means. You've got to turn that graph into a story for someone else. Pretend they cannot even see that graph. You need to describe it to them. There's a video on how to write discussions under this YouTube link, and it takes you through all of these steps here. Last but not least, you are teenagers. You are very good at picking apart and criticizing. I need you to use that superpower. You have to evaluate that experiment I did. Here are some of the problems that I noticed, and you also were there for a lot of experiments, and you should be able to talk about some of the problems you've also noticed in how grade 8s do experiments. You need to evaluate how well they collected data and evaluate whether or not they could have done better and gotten better quality measurements, the YouTube video on how to write that up is here. That is essentially what you need to do for at least 2 lessons today, and then you will be allowed to move on to the rock story experiment. I need this finished so I can check through them over the weekend.